Finding out the truth about my wife. We spent 2 years together in college and got married the fall after we graduated. Spent 2 years exploring our relationship and finally got settled down and was ready to raise a family. She got off birth control and her libido took off, but it took 3 years for us to get pregnant, but we got a beautiful girl finally. After a couple of months, my wife got back on birth control and had a hard time with it. Her doctor switched her meds several times, but she had bad side effects with each one. We talked about it and were unsure if we wanted another child, and since it was easier for me to get a vasectomy reversed later if we decided to have more children, I had the operation. That was 3 years ago, and after coming off birth control my wife has felt better and sex has been worry-free since we can no longer get pregnant. We actually have sex more now than when we were in college. Then 3 weeks ago my wife was late for her period, which isn't that unusual for her. Then I noticed her breasts were a little tender and she started what seemed like signs of morning sickness. Now I know there have been cases of nature-reversing vasectomies, so I went to the doctor and had my sperm count checked and the verdict was I'm still sterile, but I didn't tell my wife. My wife finally went to her doctor and confirmed she was pregnant, and so she had me go to my doctor to get tested. I didn't go right away because I was literally sick from the stress of the situation. I had all sorts of sick scenarios going through my head. In the end I got retested and I took my daughter in and had a DNA test done. I got both test results back today and got violently ill after reading them. Yes, I'm sterile, and no, my daughter isn't mine. When my wife got home I showed her my test and she denied any wrongdoing and saying that there was a problem with the test, and I showed her the test from last week and she broke down crying. I finally got it out of her who she had slept with and that it only happened once and the condom must have failed. I made her tell me the story 3 times, and each time I asked her if that was the whole truth and if there was anything else that she needed to tell me because another lie would mean we were through. She said that was the only time and she had never done anything like that before. I told her how much this hurt me and asked her how she could do this to our family and if it was worth it. I asked her if she wanted a divorce and she pleaded with me to forgive her and put this behind us. I said I couldn't raise someone else's child and asked her if she would be willing to terminate the pregnancy in order to stay together. She cried the rest of the night, but when we went to bed she said she would do whatever it took to save our marriage. I never brought up the DNA test. I will contact a lawyer next week to see what my options are about if I have to pay child support on our first child. If she had come clean about the father of our first child I could have swallowed my pride and tried to work to forgive her, but she thought she was in the clear and didn't need to confess to anything else. No telling what I'll never know. Lawyer update. My lawyer is awesome. She had me bring in a bunch of paperwork, bank statements, and my medical and DNA results and had me tell her my story. Her assistant sat in with us and took notes while my lawyer went through my documents. After I finished she asked a few questions and spelled out my options. I live in an at-fault state, which is good and bad. Good as in it gives us leverage, bad as it takes longer and much more expensive. In the case of the first child, if my wife agrees to sign the papers my liability for child support is an easy fix. If she doesn't agree then a court-ordered DNA test and a judgment from the court can remove me without my wife's consent. Either way, I will most likely not have to pay child support. One way is just more expensive than the other. Since my wife has a good job and earns close to what I do, she didn't think the judge would award her any alimony. And all of that plus dividing up property and other things can be negotiated before a judge gets involved. The bad news was due to the holidays they couldn't have the papers ready before Christmas, but definitely would before the end of the year. She advised me to say nothing until she got served. She gave me a list of things to do before and after Christmas before they served my wife. One thing they did point out was since we were actively trying to have a baby there was a possibility that my wife didn't know that the child wasn't mine. My wife has an appointment with her OB tomorrow. Update. So I met my sister at my house and we started moving my stuff to her house while the divorce goes through, or at least until my STBXW leaves and I get possession of the house. We took 4 carloads to her house and came back for the rest. My sister felt it important for her to be there for support and as a witness. I also moved the nanny cam into the living room so it could record everything in the cloud. At about 10:45 a.m. I got a text from the lawyer saying she had been served. I sent her an email saying that I am at the house when she is ready to talk. A couple of minutes later I got a text from my wife saying why? Blah blah blah. So I resent the first text and waited for her to get home. She sent several texts and voicemails. They don't mention anything about cheating, just how she thought we were working this out and she thought we would sit down and have a conversation before proceeding with a divorce. Playing the family card and how this will devastate the child and our families. How SHE feels betrayed, that was a good one. She was still sharing her location, and it took her 20 minutes before she left work. She then stopped at a nearby Walgreens for a few minutes. The purpose of the stop at Walgreens became clear as a police car pulled in behind her in the driveway. According to the officers, she got the police there because she said she was afraid and that we had guns in the house. I showed the officers my empty gun safe and said that I had removed them to another secure location. We went back to the living room and I showed my wife the paternity test that I had done that showed her daughter was not mine. Her response was denial and disbelief, which appeared genuine. She broke down and cried for about 10 minutes. I told her this was the final straw and why I wanted the divorce. At about that time, the police officers reminded me to keep it civil and made their exit after I told them I was leaving soon to stay at my sister's house. When I asked who the child's father was, she claimed she didn't know. I asked if there were that many guys she was sleeping with or did she just not know his name. I asked how many times had she cheated on me between pregnancies. To which she said it was just the two of them. I told her that I had said earlier if she didn't tell the whole truth that I was done. I reminded her I also told her that I couldn't/wouldn't raise someone else's child. And that she had better figure out who the real father was because I wasn't paying child support for someone else's baby. She wanted to know what we were going to tell our daughter and I said that was up to her because this was her mess and I wasn't taking the blame or cleaning it up for her. I drafted a couple of emails last week, one for our friends and family with copies of all the test results and reasons why I was asking for a divorce, the other for my wife with copies of the same tests along with what I knew and things that I had told her previously. I had to run it through my lawyer and make a couple of edits before she signed off on it. I sent copies to all our friends and relatives when she pulled into the driveway this afternoon. Most of the feedback has been one-sided and very colorful. In the end, I told her if she had been truthful we might have been able to work things out, but I couldn't trust a lying serial cheater, and I told her if she had gotten her tubes tied instead of me getting a vasectomy she might have got away with it. I told her she needed to get a lawyer so we could move forward and start to heal. Update 2. We had our second meeting with the lawyers today and we signed off on almost everything except the house, still waiting for an appraisal to come back and figure out the split. Motions got filed today and a court-ordered paternity test was scheduled for all three of us. Since STBXW didn't fight me on everything, we filed a no-fault divorce petition. If everything goes right I get the house back on February 15th and the divorce will be final on April 5th. The lawyers did a better job keeping us separated and the conversation between the two of us to a minimum. I was a little worried when she came in, pale and with no energy to speak of. I couldn't tell if it was lack of sleep or maybe over-medicated. She just stared out the windows as the lawyers read everything to us before we signed some of the papers. Walking out felt like I had shed a giant weight from around my neck. HR got me signed up for therapy tomorrow. My boss had put a bottle of champagne on my desk, offered me some time off if I needed it, but I told him I was excited to get back to work.
Drama is still not over. Once the shock wears off, she will regroup and come after you. Listen to your lawyer, lean on family, and be careful of so-called friends wanting to help you. Good move on seizing the narrative and getting the truth out. Don't be surprised if she still has supporters out there. It sounds like you prepped well, but don't let your guard down. Good luck. Hopefully, the worst days are behind you. Don't be too proud to get help from a professional.
Story 2. My husband's friendship with a young woman. My thoughts are all over the place, I'm so lost and don't know what to do or think. I, F45, have been married to my husband, M42, for 6 years, together for 9. Our relationship has always been happy, and I love him. He's handsome, confident, fun, and I can't really believe that I'm considering him to be a potential cheater. It feels terrible. One of my husband's closest friends is a 23-year-old woman, who he's known for 4 years. He met her because she asked him for directions, she was new to our city, he gave her a tour, and that was the start of it. The first year, the friendship was super normal. I was a bit jealous the first time I met her, she's beautiful, but my husband reassured me. The first year, they saw each other occasionally, but these past 3 years. They will usually see each other in the morning or for lunch, and then most evenings either alone or with their group of friends. Basically, he spends a lot of time with her, more than with me. A week ago we went out with friends and family members to the bar for the evening. It was also open mic, and my husband has a very nice voice, so he went up on stage and sang Love in Portofino, a very intense love song, which is in her language, by the way. That was fine, but the problem is that the entire time, he looked straight at his friend. It was very awkward. I wasn't sure if it was just because he was tipsy, but after this incident at the bar, when we got home I decided to seriously confront him, and of course, he denied cheating. I don't have any evidence at all. I check his texts, WhatsApp, his photos regularly, but there's nothing. There's been a few suspicious factors, but they don't especially mean he is cheating on me. The first is that when I do join their outings they're in their own world and talk non-stop, and I feel a little excluded, but again, that might just indicate a strong friendship. Another thing is that they're really hands-on, to the point where it's sometimes uncomfortable. On one occasion his friend pointed to me and said, "Your wife is that way," kind of jokingly, so I know I'm not the only one who notices it. But once again, that could be because they're both Southern European, cultural to be a little touchy, and have a good friendship. He also gifted her one of his late mother's bracelets, which I got mad at him for, but he said that it doesn't matter because 1. He has no children to pass it on to, and 2. She's a special friend to him. Which sounds valid but still, makes me uneasy. There's been other small incidents which have made me question a little, but otherwise I can never say for sure. The song really pushed it though, and I don't know, I'm so lost. It's hard to know if I'm blowing this out of proportion, and if this is all innocent. I was advised that they might be involved with each other, but I'm so unsure. My sisters think it's romantic, one of my friends says it's probably sexual, others say I shouldn't worry and that it's just like a strong father/daughter relationship. I should note this girl doesn't have a dad. I have no clue if it would be just him who likes her, or if this might be a mutual affair, etc. And don't even know if my suspicions are even valid. Update. I sat my husband down to talk again and asked him to listen to everything I have to say without interruption. I told him I love him, told him how and why I felt his relationship with this young woman, cheating or not, is unacceptable and has made me uncomfortable. I told him the ways it has impacted our marriage, and that he needed to decide to either remove her from his life and seek to work on us, or I would get a divorce. His only reply to everything I said was, "I agree, it's time we divorce." Obviously, I started crying immediately. I asked him again if he cheated on me, and he admitted to an emotional affair and having kissed the girl. He answered all of my questions and proceeded to apologize for everything, and that it's entirely his fault, like that makes me feel better. He then told me he would return later to collect his things and left. I'm shocked, and at the same time I'm not. It was stupid of me to expect any other answer than the one I got, but still, having to hear my husband so calm and unwilling to work on us even though I poured my heart out to him and was ready to give him a chance hurts me terribly. Even after the betrayal, I don't want to divorce him at all, and I'm scared for the future. I love him and I'm devastated he doesn't love me back. This is a nightmare. Thankfully, I received some really kind words of support here, which I was reading to help me feel a little better. At the end of the day, I know he won't change his mind, so all I can do is accept. Update 2. After he chose to go down the divorce pathway, he wasted no time and came with a friend to collect all of his stuff. It's strange not to have him home, and having had all his things gone so suddenly. I guess he's already been gone a long time, but it's just the empty space that really hits hard that this is real. It didn't help that I accidentally came across him and his new girl all loved up together in the town square. As some people mentioned might happen, it did. My friendships have taken a hit as well, because 2 of my closest girlfriends were aware of the affair the entire time and didn't tell me because their husbands asked them not to. So that was again, so painful. I'm crying most of the time, thinking about memories, thinking about how much I want to confront the new girl, but also trying my best to think more positive thoughts and distractions. My family has been so supportive, and so kindly, my nephew and sister-in-law have been around to comfort me. Not to mention my dog has been a huge help during these tough times, and I truly don't know what I'd do without him. I've been doing okay, and I'm sure I will get better in time.
Sorry this has happened. The friends were not friends of the marriage. Rid them of your life. Concerning your SDBX husband, once the Fantasyland unicorn farting Skittles romance comes back to reality, and they do, your SDBX will probably come crawling back. Kick him to the curb. Those 2 cheaters deserve each other. File now. Protect yourself. Keep the faith.
Story 3. 26 years down the drain. My name is Hector and I'm 47 years old, Puerto Rican. I think the abbreviation is STBX wife Debbie, and I was married for 26 years, we were together for 30. We have gotten married in our senior year in high school when she got pregnant with our firstborn. I was lucky enough to get a job at UPS right after graduation. We struggled in the beginning. She's from a traditional Irish family and they hated me at first. But I won them over. Especially her father. I made sure she didn't have to work. By the time we were 27 years old, we had 5 kids. 4 girls and a boy. I was just fortunate that the boy came out first. We had our arguments over money, discipline methods, and me complaining about the lack of sex. I understood, we have 5 children and they can be very exhausting. I tried to help as much as I could, but she was still tired. However, she was my everything. She always kept her body in shape. I try as well, but being a delivery driver for a very long time, I'm what they called skinny fat. I have a muscular chest, arms, legs, but I have a sloppy gut. I got the horseshoe hairline that caused me to shave it off. Yet, Debbie was my everything. There were times she was verbally abusive towards me, and whenever I had enough and lashed back, she became a cry bully and I just gave up. As the years went by, we were the only married couple in our friend group. Every last one of them got divorced. Out of our 7 married couple friends, 5 were caused by infidelity on the wife's part, 1 was on the husband's part, and the last one they divorced because she friend-zoned her husband. I was against my wife hanging out with her newly single friends. However, that would just start a massive argument about me controlling her, keeping her as a prisoner, and my personal living sex doll. All of that caught me by surprise. The more she hung out with them, the more resentful she became. The kids took notice. I remembered my son and 2 of my daughters arguing with her when I came home, and as much as I understood their frustration, I scolded my kids for yelling at their mother, and when they left the room, I confirmed their issue and she told me that we see her as a slave. I asked her where this was coming from, but she said forget it, shut down, and walked away. I remember D-Day so vividly. Debbie was out with her friends. I was in the kitchen cooking, the kids were watching Train to Busan, and my 3 oldest came to the kitchen. I thought they came to check on the food, but they all had a concerned look. Before I asked what was the issue, my son told me that they think their mother was having an affair. Of course, at first, I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I yelled at them and I told them I was going to prove they were wrong. I turned on the Where's My iPhone app and saw that she was at a bar on the outskirts of town. I hopped in my truck and I went. When I arrived at the bar it was crowded, but I saw her circle of friends in the corner booth acting like drunk idiots. When I approached them, they all turned pale and that unsettling feeling hit my stomach. Since I didn't see her in the bar, I went outside and walked around the parking lot. There was a car in the back corner. It looked like the man in the driver's side was sleeping. A man who I thought was my friend. I approached the car to ask him if he has seen my wife, but when I got closer, it was obvious that he was getting a BJ, and the closer I got, the more I recognized the woman in the car. I was practically standing by the driver's side window and none of them noticed me. I lost my temper. I broke the window, dragged him out, and I wasn't civil. Debbie was screaming sorry over and over. I was yelling at her while kicking him. Cops showed up soon after that and I was arrested for assault and battery. I spent a week and a half in county. I had to go into the infirmary because I thought I was having a heart attack, but it turned out I was suffering from broken heart syndrome. The news of what I did spread like wildfire. Eventually my father-in-law bailed out. The man was practically in tears when I stepped through those gates. He profusely apologizes to me for his daughter's actions. During the drive home, he told me he spoke to my manager and union rep about the situation so I can still keep my job. He said that the kids has been staying with him and Debbie was waiting for me in the house. He said he knows what was going to happen, which was why he brought the truck. He was right. When we got to the house, Debbie ran to me crying and tried to hug me, but shoved her so hard that she fell to the ground. She looked at me with shock. I told her to get her shit out of my house and I want a divorce. She tried to fight it, but her father convinced her otherwise. An hour after they left, my mother-in-law came with the kids and I hugged them all for dear life. She apologizes for her daughter's actions as well before leaving. Now in my state, there's mandatory couples counseling before granting the divorce. Which in my opinion is complete BS. I don't understand why I have to go to counseling if she cheated. At the beginning of the sessions, I just sat there, listening to her dribble. That is exactly what it was, dribble. Blame shifting on the fact we were young parents and she never experienced the wild lifestyle. The freedom, and she got carried away. She got lost in it and her friends encouraged it. Soon she felt like she was missing something and she started a fling. The counselor tried on a few times to make it my fault, telling me that I should have allowed her to spread her wings every once in a while and how I needed to see it from her point of view. I just looked at the woman and asked the counselor if she was smoking crack. Because that was the dumbest thing that could have come out of her mouth. I asked Debbie how long she was cheating on me with him and she said 4 months and insisted that he was the only one. But it was a mistake and we could get past this because we have history. So I asked her more questions. Who initiated the sex, you or him? How many times did you go down on him? Did you swallow? Did he do you raw? Did he come in you? Did they fall asleep together? Through her stream of tears, she answered them honestly and I was quiet for a long while. The counselor tried talking to me twice during this and I raised my finger. I thought about everything we did before and during her affair window. The laughter, the conversations, the sex. Everything, and there was no inkling of her being sad or angry. We were just being us. When I finally did speak, I brought up the times we had sex during that window. I called her a bitch. The counselor tried to correct me and I told her to shut up as I continued to call her every name in the book. Eventually, I told her she was tainted in my eyes. Again, the counselor and Debbie tried to convince me that our history and relationship can get past this mistake and I didn't want to hear it anymore. It was like they didn't care about my feelings on the matter. It was just about forgiving her and what I can do to get over it and apologize to her for making her feel like a servant. So I walked out. This contested divorce has been a long uphill battle for the past 2 years. Debbie is still trying to make things right, still trying to get us back together. I don't know why, because our conversations are strictly about the kids, and when she tried to talk to me about something else I hang up on her. Family gatherings are consisted of me avoiding her or not showing up at all. Our oldest children refuse to talk to her. I try to make them spend time with their mom, but they refuse, and I have chosen to respect that. My in-laws are at my house weekly, and I know they have been trying to make their daughter give me my divorce, but that has been a bust. My mother-in-law has been especially harsh on her, calling her a dumb brat, gossiping about her to her congregation. I had to ask her to stop because I didn't want the whole town to know our business. During the first year, my son and daughter created a Tinder account for me. I thought it was dumb. I'm a middle-aged man with 5 children who has a dad bod. Yet I have been on over a dozen very successful dates that have been a real confidence booster. Recently I met someone during my court-issue community service. Her name is Isabel, and she was our Habitat for Humanity supervisor. She's drop-dead gorgeous and won first place for a Vanessa Marcel lookalike contest at a soap opera convention she and her daughter attended. That's how we started talking. My daughters love watching General Hospital, and I sat with them. To me, this is one of the few times I get to spend with them. I introduced her to kids 6 months in, and they instantly took a shine to her. To make things really awkward, my son and her daughter appear to really like each other. However, Debbie is not letting go. She actually told our youngest 2 children that eventually, we will get back together. I had to tell her to stop telling them this. Her father is trying to make her go see a therapist, but I just want this over already. I don't regret my years with Debbie. I have 5 wonderful kids with her. I man up and build a life for her. My only regret is that she ruined 26 years together on a fling. I regret that she thought she had me in a way that I was just going to let it slide and take her back. However, I do hate her. When I run into her old group of friends around town, I openly call them bitches and homewreckers instead of their names. That love and respect that I had for her disappeared when I caught her in that car. She will always be the mother of my children and nothing else. I just hope that she can come to terms with that. Update. I'm tired, sitting in the hospital, on my 3rd can of Bang, waiting for my ex to be transferred into a mental hospital. My daughters are home, Isabel is sleeping beside me, and she hasn't left my side. My son has been with his mother after she left the surgery. His girlfriend/Isabel's daughter has been by his side as well. Last weekend was the start of this nightmare. The week prior was the lead up to my in-laws' 55th wedding anniversary, and they asked me to bring Isabel. Since we made it official, they have kindly asked me not to bring her to functions to avoid tension, and I obliged. This time they asked if she could come. For the past month, my ex has been a bit erratic. She had several physical altercations with her old friends. One of them got a broken nose, one had a busted lip, and the last one was shoved out of a Circle K. Each time the police were called, and considering how small our county was, they just took her to her parents' house. I tried telling my in-laws that she should be taken to the hospital for evaluation. It even blew up into a shouting match, but in the end, I concede. I should have fought harder. On Saturday, we all showed up at my in-laws' anniversary party, and to me, Debbie appeared off. I pulled her to the side, and it was the first time I had actually spoken to her. I asked her if she was all right, and she faked a smile, trying to tell me that she was okay, but I called her out on it and she cried a little. She told me how sorry she was. She told me that she couldn't understand why she didn't tell her old friends to back off. Or why she gave in to the peer pressure. She told me that she destroyed our family, and seeing how I am with Isabel only made her miss me more and wished she appreciated what she had. When she said that, I felt fear in the pit of my stomach, or maybe it was anxiety. I should have kept asking if she was all right, but I was blindsided when Debbie formally apologized to Isabel for her actions and asked her to keep me happy because I'm a good man who deserves a good woman. During the party, Debbie went to each of our kids and I can see them making peace with her. I don't know what was said, but they hugged and kissed her. They were talking and laughing, even posed for a few pictures. Isabel and I were having a great time, and for once, I thought about having cordial conversations with Debbie. It was 3 a.m. when I got the call. My sister-in-law was screaming in a panic. I could hear my mother-in-law crying, and then I heard my brother-in-law trying to calmly tell me that Debbie tried to end her life and they were on their way to the hospital. I rushed out of the house in my PJs. Isabel and my daughters didn't need to ask what happened. My side of the conversation painted the picture and my daughters were severely distraught. Debbie slit her wrists and would have bled out if it hadn't been for her bother needing to use the bathroom in the middle of the night. When I arrived at the hospital, my in-laws were not well. She lost a lot of blood and was in surgery to repair the arteries. I should have called my kids, but my mind was occupied. It took me to see my son casually walking towards me to ask me why I was in the hospital when reality hit me, and I struggled not to cry as I told him what happened, and he ran towards the OR. I called the rest of my kids, and they already knew. My youngest called them and they were almost at the hospital. She was in surgery for 6 hours. My father-in-law and I donated our blood for her since the hospital was short on her blood type. My son couldn't be a part of the operation, but he observed the surgery. All of my daughters were not doing well. My eldest daughter especially, all she kept talking about was the could've, should've, would've, and I told her to just focus on the now and not the past. My younger 3 daughters were pacing around, and when my son left the OR he told us that she was going to be fine, and when I hugged him, he collapsed into my arms, crying. I wanted to cry as well, but I had to be strong for them. Late Sunday, my mother-in-law found the suicide notes. She wrote one for each of the kids and a thick one for me. In my envelope were the signed divorce papers and an 8-page letter of apology. The letter just reinforced that she was never unhappy about our marriage. She just gave in to the peer pressure and, how she called it, brainwashed that she was a servant by her so-called friends. She stated that she was so sorry for how she treated me, the kids, and for having that affair. I'm paraphrasing it. Thought. When Debbie woke up, at first she refused to talk. She would just stare out the window. For 2 days it was like that, and it was around that time I asked about how to update. I needed a distraction. Then she slowly began acknowledging everyone, but she was distant. Almost as if she was disappointed that she was still alive. As the days passed she didn't get better, although she was more conversational. Debbie asked to speak to Isabel alone. When she came out she told me that Debbie asked her if she loves me because she could see that I love her. Isabel told her that she did love me. Told her that I was the first man she had been with since her husband died 15 years ago in Afghanistan. She asked me if Debbie was right. Did I love her, and I acknowledge it. This made her happy. Debbie is going to be in a mental hospital for observation. The doctor told her parents that it could be a year, maybe 2, before she gets released. She may no longer be my wife or the woman that I devoted all my love to, but she's still the mother of my children, and I'm going to make sure she gets better, for our kids' sake.
Quite frankly, there is no upside to reconciliation. A 4-month affair requires a lot of planning, effort, and subterfuge. This was not a drunken one-night stand. She unilaterally opened up your marriage. You were exposed to STDs. Hopefully your children are all your own. Paternity tests are your business. Now she'll get 1/2 of all your assets and mandated alimony and child support. That's not fair. You were faithful. Don't put your head in a blender and try to make sense of her attempts at manipulation and blame-shifting. There's no point. You kept your marriage intact. She chose to have affairs. One more thing, What kind of person gives head in a parking lot to an AP? That's enough reason to divorce. A mom acting that sleazy, I'm female, I want to throw up. You think he was the only one? I don't. It's good you're getting out. You have nothing left to work with here. It's time to take your toys and leave. Go no contact or very low contact. There's nothing left for you in this relationship. Women are looking for loyal, honest partners. If you think you have found love again, be respectful to your GF and see where it goes. I hope that you've taken her off as your beneficiary of your pension, 401k, accident and dismemberment insurance, and in bank accounts you may have. Even though you're still married, ask your attorney if you can make up anew while leaving your things to your children when the divorce goes through. Good luck.